What is up? What is going on, everybody? Jay back here with another Seattle Mariners video. As always, hit that sub button, hit the like button for more content, getting some more subscribers, getting some more views on my videos. Most of them are still coming from people not subscribed, so if you're enjoying and watch it, just hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a whole lot. And thank you to the likes for the likes and the engagement. Please keep it up. And thank you to everybody for keeping it civil. At the end of the day, and this video may create some controversy, we all want the Seattle Mariners to win. I'm not here to judge how anybody is a fan or anything like that. So we can all think differently, but we all want the Seattle Mariners to eventually hold up a World Series trophy. So we got an off day for the Mariners today, and I figured this would be a good time to kind of reevaluate the Mariners off-season, my takes on it and everything like that, and just kind of see where we're at. I don't hide the fact I defended what they did this offseason. You can go back and watch a video I have. Somewhere back there, I said the Mariners have had a good offseason. That video's still up, so I'm not running and hiding from anything like that. And I still stand by most of it. Now, I do wish they had added another bat, and I'll get into all that. But, I stand by that. And, again, I'm just a guy, I'm a guy that likes to have a beer and watch a baseball game. I'm going to be wrong on some things. I'm going to be right on some things, as most of us are. So let's dive into a little bit. I figure this would be a good time to do this. One, like I said, it's an off day. And second of all, the Mariners are coming off a really bad series in Texas, where they got swept against a team that quite honestly looks very superior to the Seattle Mariners right now. Looks like there's a pretty significant gap between the two teams. It's also kind of a polarizing series because the Rangers spent a lot of money with Seager, Simeon, John Gray, Evaldi, DeGrom. I'm probably missing someone in there as well, but they have spent money. Bruce Bochy, even that acquisition. So a very polarizing series in the Mariners kingdom or Mariners universe, because the Mariners did not spend a ton of money this offseason. And it looks like a Rangers team that was bad last year has passed them by. And they maybe they have, and that's possible. It certainly right now looks like they have. And more power to them for doing it. I certainly don't begrudge, well, I do a little bit as a Mariners fan. I want the Rangers to not be good, but I don't begrudge the Rangers any success that they've had. They took some gambles. Free agencies can always be a gamble, and they're paying off for them. But I want to dive more into what the Mariners did this offseason. Why I will still defend it, what Jerry and Justin did this offseason. Not all of it. It has flaws. I'm not here to say Jerry and Justin should just be given a key to the city, and they have never done anything wrong, and just, if you don't like it, shut up and move on. They've made mistakes. I think they've made mistakes in this last offseason. But I think the plan overall was sound, and I'll dive into that here a little bit. First of all, one thing I've been hearing a lot is that the Mariners were very lucky last year, and because the Mariners were 90-72, that was their record. They were very lucky, and the team shouldn't have banked on them winning a lot of one-run games again. That might be true for 2021, when the team sat there with 90 wins and I think a negative 20 run differential. That more than likely entailed a lot of luck. Last year's team had a Pythagorean win-loss record, which is your win-loss record based on your run differential, of 89-73. So they overperformed their record by a game last year. So essentially, they were exactly what Pythagorean win-loss said they were going to be last year in 2022. They did win a lot of one-run games, and I've talked about that in past videos, how there can be some luck involved in that, and I certainly do think there is sometimes. It's never all one way. But here's the thing, if you're going to sit there and your notion is, well, last year's team was just lucky, then right away, this year's team automatically has to fall in the unlucky category. Because I think they're, 6-13, 7-13 or something in one-run games. Might be 6-12. So automatically then, if you think last year's team was lucky, then this year's team is unlucky. Because if they were 500 in one-run games, which would be 9-9, we'd be sitting here at 32 and 27 and be feeling pretty good about this team right now. So if you're just going to bank on 2022's team being all luck, then you have to say the 2023 team is unlucky. You can't have it both ways. You can't say they were all luck here and then this year's just bad baseball. I think it's a little bit of both. I think they were fortunate in some of the one-run games. I did expect some regression there, but overall the team last year was pretty much in line with their Patag. I didn't think they'd win as many one-run games this year, but as normal, as always, you expect a team to be right in line with what their Pythagorean win-loss is. So I think there was a little bit of luck involved. I think there's been a little bit of bad luck involved this year. I don't think that changes necessarily where we view the team. But I do think a little bit of it is involved, but you can't just bank on it being one and then not having this year be the other, if that makes sense. The other thing is, too, so if you look at this team as an 89-90 true win talent team last year, which they were based on Pythagorean, what do they need to do to take that next step? The next step from, going from 65 to 85 wins, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier. It's easier because you've got bad baseball players out there, and it's easy to replace and plug in new people. The Mariners are trying to do that next hard step, which is going from 89-90 to 95-100. That's a hard next step to make, especially without internal guys taking step forward. I will also say, too, that no team is ever projected really to win more than 100. If you look at Fangraphs projections, so you can't sit there and say, well, the Mariners need to get to 108, 109 to beat Houston. No team is projected to win 108, 109. If you're getting into that territory, again, there's some good luck involved there. Like even the 0-1 Mariners, as amazing they were, did overperform their Patag, not by much. But in order to get that many wins, it's going to require a little bit of that luck. So again, you're not necessarily looking to get to 108, 109, but 95 to 100 in that range where you feel like you can compete for a division title. That's the Mariners' goal. How do we get 5 wins better? And this offseason, I think they did little things that were to make those next steps. Adam Frazier, despite some of the postseason heroics for this team, was not very good last year. They moved on and acquired Colton Wong, who was better by about... let me pull up. I should have had this all up before, but I want to say he was about a full win better last year by WAR standards. I'll pull it up. We got time. I'll pull this up here. So let's look at Adam Frazier last year, who is, of course, killing it this year, as typical for the Mariners. So Adam Frazier, who, there we go, 2022 in Seattle was worth, let's see here, it does that thing where it scrolls all over the place. Is this Adam Frazier? Yes, it is. He was worth 1.1 WAR last year. Colton Wong was worth... Now, you don't just want to go off of 1 year. It's an accumulation as well. So Wong was certainly a little bit better last year than he has been some of the past. Apparently my dog barking does not like Colton Wong. Colton Wong last year was worth 2.4 WAR. And in the past, the year before that, he's worth 2.5, 1.2, 3.5, 2.2 going back. So he's pretty consistently been a 2 to 2.5 win player. Again, that's about a full win over Adam Frazier. When you're a team trying to go from 90 to 95, that is a major improvement. Now, if this team won 67 games, no, I wouldn't sit there and say Colton Wong is that major of an upgrade and worth acquiring. But every win matters when you're that close. When you're a 90-win team trying to take that next step, yeah, that 1.5 wins is actually very valuable, and that is a substantial upgrade. They also added Teoscar Hernandez in right field. And again, in the trade for Colton Wong, to get Jesse Winker, who's been awful, and Abraham Toro, who outside of a few clutch moments, which we miss those, was not very good as well. So it didn't cost you much to get Colton Wong. Teoscar Hernandez, the same thing. Now, obviously, his WAR versus Mitch Haniger's wasn't a ton different, but Mitch Haniger got a big contract from the Giants, and he has struggled last I saw. I've been following much recently. I know Haniger's off to a really slow start. He's had injury issues. Outside of 2021, you've not gotten a full season out of Mitch Haniger before that since 2018. And he missed time last year. He's already missed some time this year. So, and again, Haniger, when he came back last year, was not very productive. He looked like he had taken a step back. And again, getting a big contract, I don't think anybody wanted to give Mitch Haniger that deal the Giants did from the Mariners' standpoint. And maybe you didn't, that's fine, but they went out and they got a guy in Teoscar Hernandez, who's got one of the highest hard hit rates, one of the highest barrel rates in baseball to fill that role, and was a more productive player than Mitch Haniger last year. So if, again, we go back, and we'll pull it up here for Mitch Haniger and Teoscar Hernandez. Now, obviously, 2021 Haniger was amazing. There's no doubt about that. Let's see if I can pull this up here. It's going to do this thing where the screen goes back and forth. Like last year, Mitch Haniger was only worth zero point 0.8 wins above replacement level. Now, he missed a lot of time, but that counts. Like that, the injuries matter. Mitch Haniger is someone that has been injury prone. So if it was a little small injury and, he was someone that's been healthy his whole career, not Enrique Hernandez, Teoscar Hernandez. Again, I should probably have these numbers just handy before we start. Come on, I don't care about Enrique Hernandez. I care about Teoscar Hernandez. Come on. Oh, come on. Now it's going to be very slow. But yeah, so Mitch Haniger is someone that has been injury prone. So that injury does matter. It's one of the reasons why you might be willing to move on from a player like him. So they went out and got Teoscar Hernandez in a trade for Eric Swanson, which trades can be more risky than free agency because you've got to give up talent to get the talent as opposed to just the money. Teoscar Hernandez last year was worth 2.5 wins, 4.3 the year before that, and then 1.6 before that. So 2 years in a row of being over 2.5 plus wins above replacement level. That's a substantial upgrade over what Mitch Haniger did. So even if Teo gives you 2 wins this year, that is, again, 1+ win improvement over what you got out of right field last year. And again, I go back to when you're sitting at 89, 90 wins, as you view that as your true talent level, those 2-3 wins are very important. It is. To go from 90 to 93 is a big jump. Same thing in football. Going from 10 to 11 is a big jump. Like, it takes a lot to get that win, to get those players to put you a little bit better. So that was kind of the big offseason acquisitions. And it wasn't just that. Remember some of the other things that this team has done. They traded for Luis Castillo last year. That was in late July, early August. That's 90-something games into the season. So you've got Castillo for about a third of the season last year. You now have a full season of Luis Castillo coming into this year. And I feel like I'm just hashing points I did from my offseason video. But that matters. It's not an acquisition that happened in the offseason, but you're now getting, 34 starts from Luis Castillo versus 12 or 13. That's 20 more impactful starts from an ace. Cal Raleigh didn't really come up and start being Cal until June of last year. Let me pull something up here real quick. So you get a full season now of Cal Raleigh behind the dish instead of Luis Torrens and an injured Tom Murphy. So that matters. It's not an offseason acquisition, but you're looking at those things to help put you potentially over the top for this team. A full season of someone like Matt Brash in the bullpen. Little things like that. And then also Julio Rodriguez, another name. To go from young, up-and-coming superstar to become that Ronald Acuna Jr. type player. A guy that is just that spark plug and carries the team. Those things just for the Mariners, unfortunately, haven't really happened. Julio's been decent overall. Like, if this is what Julio Rodriguez is, like, it's a decent ball player, but it's not a superstar. It's just a solid major leaguer. Luis Castillo has been great. Cal's been decent too. But little things like that as well were the hope to put this team over the top as well, to get them from, 92, 90, or 92, 94, 95, 96, whatever number you're kind of looking at that puts you in position to win the division. Now, I also want to point out, I did want another bat. And when I made that offseason acquisition, or that they had a good offseason, we weren't done with it. I kind of thought they would add somebody similar to what they did last year with Gino and Jesse Winker kind of in spring training. I assumed they'd add a DH type bat. I thought bring back Carlos Santana on a 1-year deal would have been totally fine. I think what happened there for the Mariners is they didn't expect Santana to get signed so early in free agency. Pittsburgh kind of came in and just signed him right away. And remember, at the time, the Mariners still had Jesse Winker on the roster. So I think there were some thoughts of, is Winker going to be the DH? And then with just all some of that off-field stuff with Winker, it just became apparent that they needed to move on. That's not excusing that. I'm not giving Jerry, Justin, Scott, whoever you want to get a pass on that. Like, that is poor management. If that's how they processed it, which I don't know, that's kind of what I'm assuming. That's not a good idea. You should get the player and then let things work out themselves. But even there, I like Carlos Santana. He'd be better at DH than what they've been getting out of that position. but I can tell you Carlos Santana would not be making that much of a difference where this team is in line with what Texas is doing right now. Now let's point and get to the main issue of why this team is struggling right now, or underperforming expectations. They're a game under 500, and they've been over 500, but I think we thought this was a team that could compete for the division title, and they're not right now. And the main reason is the underperforming of the current level of talent on the team. Now, some of that's injury related. They were dealt a big blow when Robbie Ray went out for the season. Bryce Miller has filled in well, but you've seen some of the rookie struggles. His last 2 starts, he has been hit very hard. It happened to Robbie Ray too. Not saying that Ray wouldn't have had bad starts, but you feel a little more comfortable with the veteran in Robbie Ray to make those adjustments on the fly versus a younger guy like Bryce Miller who's learning at this level. It's a tough thing to do. Oh, I'll add one more for the roster was a full season of George Kirby as well. Remember, George Kirby didn't come up until after Matt Brash was removed from the rotation, I think in late May. So getting 32, 33 starts out of Kirby as opposed to 25, 26, whatever it was last year, was also going to be something this team was banking on to help put him over the top. Lost my train of thought there on the pitch. Yeah, the injury to Robbie Ray, the injury to Marco matters. We'll see how Brian Wu responds, but that's going to hurt them as well. They've had some bullpen injuries. Andres Munoz might be one of the best bullpen weapons in the majors. Now, bullpen guys just inherently don't have a ton of value. They just don't pitch enough. So, I don't think losing Munoz is like the difference between the Mariners and the Rangers by far. But it's just little things, and all these little things add up. Just as you're trying to add little bits of wins to make that catch up to those teams, those little things can bring you back down. Like we've seen where this bullpen they might have won some of these one-run games with Andres Munoz in there. Maybe they have, Munoz wouldn't be worth 2 WAR at this point in the season, but maybe they're just a couple games that they're able to get with his ability to get strikeouts and whatnot on the mound. So, and then the Dylan Moore injury. Now, they've been fortunate. Jose Caballero has actually filled in pretty well to that role, but Dylan Moore offers this team, one, a bat that can mash lefties and a lot of positional versatility to kind of get that DH position rotating, which is what the goal is for this team to be. The other thing I'm tired of hearing is that, like, oh, Jerry and Justin, what a terrible offseason. They had Tommy LaStella as their DH. Tommy LaStella had 25 at-bats for this team. That is like 6 games worth of at-bats, and he was let go. Just because he was the opening day DH does not mean he was the answer for this team at DH. Now, you can not like their plan at designated hitter, and I think that's fair. I think their plan was kind of a revolving door, rotating DH, where guys like Dylan Moore offer them some flexibility, Haggerty, and they could have Kelenic DH, Julio DH, Teo DH, Murphy DH. That was a goal going in. If you don't like that, that's fine. I think there is legitimate beef to that, and the DH position was one that I thought they should have gone out and got somebody. But the notion that they just handed this job to Tommy LaStella is not true. If LaStella wasn't the opening day DH, I don't think anybody would be throwing this out there. But because he was the DH in game 1, it's like, oh, Tommy LaStella was their opening day DH. Like, who cares who was the opening day DH? LaStella had 25 at-bats. Like, most of these guys probably had 25 at-bats over the last 4 games. Well, probably not because his team isn't scoring, but you know what I mean. Like, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. LaStella was not their answer. He was a spring training invitee with when they had injuries to Trammell, Dylan Moore, and stuff like that. Did make the opening day roster. The opening day opposing pitcher was right-handed, and they put LaStella in at DH on that day. Now, like, again, you could have an issue with that. Now, you could come back and say, listen, the fact that they didn't do much at DH is what forces them to have Tommy LaStella in their opening day, and that's fair. I think that is a fair argument. But the notion that this team, like, big offseason acquisition was Tommy LaStella is just not true. That they weren't banking on that. Maybe some poor planning led to that, and that's fair. But the notion that, like, oh, Jerry's an idiot for that is just ridiculous. So, again, let's get back to what the main issue is right now. That's these guys underperforming. Now, this is from a couple of days ago, unless this just drastically improved yesterday, which I doubt. This is a look at the team's 2022 WCR plus weighted runs created versus their 2023. JP was 104 last year, is at 104 this year. A little misleading because I think JP really cooled off at the end of the year. He was carried by a hot April, May, and a little bit of June. So JP has been better, in my opinion. Ty France, 2022, had a 126 WRC plus. He's at 114. hitting below what he did last year. Julio Rodriguez, 146 last year, 109 this year. Jared Kelenick's one of the positives, 55 last year, 135 this year. That gamble, letting Jared Kelenick at least start out as a platoon player and having that left field position, has been a good gamble by this front office. There were some people questioning it, and they've been proven correct. Now, I think Kelenick has cooled off a little bit, but overall his numbers are good. Whether it was from a hot April or just solid from April to May, the numbers are still the numbers, and he's been solid. Eugenio Suarez, 131 last year, 87 this year. Now, I've heard people talk about that Gino was an obvious candidate for regression. Now, again, if Gino was at like 110, 115, I probably wouldn't harp on it too much. But if you look at his barrel rates and everything, he's actually about where he normally is. And you can just look at the eye test. He's had 4 or 5 home runs that just dying a little bit short of the warning track. Now that's, it's too bad, so sad. Every team could look at all their close counts and, make a case for someone being better. But Gino's profile is still pretty similar. He's just, some of the fly balls just aren't going over the fence for him. He's still walking at a pretty good rate, still playing good defense. I agree that I think Gino at his age was probably a little bit of a regression candidate, but not from 131 WRC plus to 87. If Gino was at 110 or up, I probably wouldn't even mention him because I do think that's fair. But remember, too, in Gino's poor season, he fought some injuries. He was playing out of position in Cincinnati. And once they moved him back to third base, started hitting better. Now, maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it's not. But I know players do find, being able to play the field and being comfortable can affect their hitting. Cal Raleigh, 121 last year, 111 this year. One that I probably wouldn't normally bring up, but when you factor in the rest of it, it's just one more that's below what he normally does. Teoscar Hernandez, 129 last year, 86 this year. Colton Wong versus right-handed pitching, which where he is primarily used against righties. 135 last year against righties, 43 this year. A.J. Pollock versus lefties, 161 last year, 12 this year. Sam Haggerty, 114 last year, 50 this year. Tom Murphy versus left-handed pitching, where he's primarily going to be used, 165 last year, 83 this year. Taylor Trammell, 99 last year, 79 this year. Dylan Moore, 126 WRC plus last year, hasn't played this season. That's the reason this team is struggling. It's right there. These guys are all hitting below what they did last year. You're going to have some guys that's going to happen. Not everybody's going to hit the same as last year. Some guys are going to regress. And they've been fortunate. Jared Kelenick is one of the guys that has stepped up. Fine, let's wipe out, Gino for Kelenick or A.J. Pollock for Kelenick. That still leaves you with like 10 guys that are underperforming. And some of the ones like that we don't even talk about that much, like A.J. Pollock has made a career of hitting left-handed pitching. He's always been good at that. And he's been terrible this year. Now, again, I don't expect him this WRC plus to be 161 against lefties, but it's 12. He's been terrible. Again, I say this in all the videos, me and you could have a 12 WRC plus against lefties. You know what I mean? It is that amazing how much it's fallen. Colton Wong, again, I've heard tons of people say Colton Wong was an obvious regression candidate because he's going from the NL to the AL. And that's maybe fine that Colton Wong wasn't going to be as good as he was last year. But to go from 135 against righties WCR plus to 43, again, if this is like 101, if Pollock was at 102, if Teo was at 100, if Gino was at 100, like Julio at 122, Murphy at 105, I'm just throwing out numbers. I probably wouldn't really bring this up. But these are guys that not only are hitting below what they did last year, they've just straight up sucked this season. So that's the main reason for this team's struggles this year, is these guys just not performing as they did last year. And again, you can always expect a couple guys to perform worse. It's going to happen. I guarantee you, Jerry and Justin aren't stupid. Even if you don't like them, they knew that was going to happen somewhere. But for every single guy to be doing it is affecting them. It's hurt them. And I've heard people say, well, the issue is the depth, because if Julio's not a superstar, this team just doesn't have a lot of depth. Now, to an extent, I do agree that maybe there could have been. And again, it's why I go back to they should have signed another bat. I do agree with that. But I'm telling you, the DH bats wouldn't put them that much closer to Texas right now. It's unless these guys all start performing that we just talked about, it wouldn't have mattered what they did. Again, I say this in every video, unless you had the George Costanza getting Bonds and Griffey without having to give up that much. I had a way to get Trout and Ohtani with only giving up Logan Gilbert or something, then there was even that. Like, I mean, these guys underperforming would still be hurting this team, and I still don't think they'd be in first place. I think they'd be in third pretty soundly, and I think they'd be better. But even there, I don't think they would be knocking on Texas's door right now with these guys currently struggling the way they are. And I had a train of thought. I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, it's like I said. And listen, that's on Jerry and Justin. Like, regardless of, and that's I've heard some people say, well, these guys have taken a step back. You saw it last year with Winker, Adam Frazier, whoever you want to, throw under there, and those guys underperform, and now more guys underperforming this year. And Jerry and Justin do bear the responsibility of that. They're the GM, and I'm not sure what Jerry's title is anymore, president or something like that. They do. Like, they're ultimately responsible. So I'm not trying to sit there and say, like, just these guys get a complete pass and it's nothing's on them and give them 20-year contract extensions. It's not. Like, maybe there is something in their player evaluation that they're not seeing, because this is 2 years in a row of acquisitions underperforming. I don't know if it's the ballpark. Maybe it's just a small sample this year and these guys turn it around and get it going. But there is something there that they probably have to look at. And that's fair. That's a totally fair criticism. But it's not also just like this terrible offseason plan that everybody saw coming. These are not numbers here that everybody saw coming. If you did, send me some lotto numbers, please, because I'd love to play them if you saw all these guys dropping off like this. One thing I didn't mention there is, like, obviously you've got Caballero, who didn't play last year, is playing pretty well this year. I didn't see his name on that list there, otherwise I would have thrown him in. So they've gotten fortunate. They've gotten production out of that position a little bit from him. So, again, like I said, this isn't meant to be a ringing endorsement for Jerry and Justin. They have some things to answer to for sure. But sometimes the players deserve blame. Like, it seems like people are really harsh to blame players, but these are all guys that are better than what they're doing right now. Outside of Kelenic and JP and Caballero, every single one of these guys needs to look in the mirror and find out what they're not doing correctly. I'm not a big blame a hitting coach person. I really don't think hitting coaches have that much impact. Normally what happens is teams fire hitting coaches right before they go into a series against a really bad pitching staff. So, we see that all the time. Like, oh, the bats woke up. Like, well, yeah, you're playing a much worse team now. That's always what teams do when they make those firings, so it looks like it was the right move. I don't even know who the hitting coach is, to be honest. That shows you how little I care about that job. Not trying to downgrade it or anything. Like, I'm not saying there isn't things they work on with guys, but I can promise you that's not going to do anything at all to change the team unless these guys play better. It's not like I highly doubt all these guys came in and the Mariners said, hey, whatever you did last year, do the exact opposite. These are all veteran players. Teoscar Hernandez is Teoscar Hernandez. His game the Mariners didn't make him drastically change his game. Now, on some of the guys that are like on the fringe, like some of the pitching, like, yeah, Paul Sewald was a guy that couldn't really find a home. They saw a pitch that they thought was really good and they had him work on it more. That makes sense. Like, maybe a guy like, like Jared Kelenic. Yeah, he clearly had some stuff he had to work on, so they maybe did some stuff there. That makes sense. The rest of these guys have all been successful major leaguers. I doubt much was told to them outside of, just do what you've been doing, and we'll take it. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the offseason. Listen, at the end, the proof's in the pudding, and they're not winning. So like I said, like Jerry and Justin are responsible for that. I'm not giving them a pass. This team is not playing very well. And is behind the eight ball in terms of definitely for the division. Division might even be done and for the playoffs. But I think it's been very polarizing because you've seen what Texas has done. You're seeing what Seattle's doing. I want to be clear, too, with Texas. Like, their free agents didn't add, because what they're on pace to be like 24 wins better than last year. They did not add 24 wins of WAR in the offseason, guys. Some of this is player development, and their guys playing a lot better. They're getting good production from guys like Travis Jankowski, who the Mariners had last year for a little bit. That's kind of a fourth outfielder. Adolis Garcia has taken that next step forward. The development of Jonah Heim has been huge. And they took some gambles on pitching. Remember, like, John Gray was not that great in Colorado. Like, he had stuff, but the numbers were, now some of that might be Coors. I don't know enough John Gray's numbers in front of me. But he was a guy that was always kind of like, he'd go 5 innings and he'd get 8 strikeouts, but get 5 runs. You even saw that last year from him a little bit. Like, and kudos to the Rangers, like, for maybe they figured something out with that. Nathan Eovaldi's kind of been the same thing. This guy's a Cy Young candidate this year. He's always kind of been a guy with a lot of strikeout stuff, but doesn't go super deep into games sometimes, more of a middle of the rotation guy than a top end guy. So there is some breaks there where the Mariners signed Robbie Ray and Robbie Ray's out for the year. So you are getting kind of the extremes on both sides. That's not taken away from Texas. Good, like, they've showed where sometimes gambling on the free agents can pay off. It does. But we've all seen like teams like the Padres this year where it doesn't always pay off, and you're saddled with a lot of contracts. So it's working out for the Rangers very well. That like I said, I don't think they did anything dumb this offseason or anything like that. I think kudos to them for going all in and going for it. I do wish the Mariners opened up the checkbooks a little bit more in the offseason. But the notion that it was just Jerry being an idiot, not spending, and it's Jerry just wants to be smarter than everybody in the room, I think is a bit much too. I think they did make some solid acquisitions as a team trying to go from 90 to 95, 96 wins. And it's just everything right now is backfired. And it's not just the offseason. It's some of the additions they made last year as well. Like I said, Luis Castillo, full seasons of Cal, full seasons of George Kirby. And then there's been some injuries in there too. And all those little things, like I said, it does add up. Robbie Ray out for the year. Andres Munoz has only pitched 3 or 4 innings. Dylan Moore's been out for the year. And I know Dylan Moore and Andres Munoz might not be huge needle movers just in terms of positions and whatnot, but it does all add up for the Mariners. Instead of Robbie Ray, they had to run Chris Flexen and Tommy Malone out there from some starts, and they were really bad. Chris Flexen's regression. This was a guy that in 2021 was a really good middle-of-the-rotation guy. Last year was a pretty decent back-end guy, and this year he's just been awful. So, I mean, even that regression, plays in there a little bit. So, hopefully these guys get it turned around. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please do engage. If you think that it's just Jerry and Justin not doing a good job, that's fair. I just keep respectful as I try to as well. If you think Scott's the problem, let me know. I don't think there's much a manager can do. As long as the clubhouse is cohesive, I think I think your manager's doing a pretty good job. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I will catch you guys all later. I hope you have a great Monday. And as always, we all want the Mariners to win. So go Mariners. Peace.